Okay, thank you everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. Is there any agenda additions or deletions? Okay, hearing none. Approval of the October 23rd minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Katie, are you gonna try and get a hold of Cash on the phone?
Yeah, I can get on the phone. Hey, it's Katie. We just got to highway, so I'm gonna put you on speakerphone if you're ready. We're at the road commissioner report. I'm not sure if you have much to report on that, but okay. All right.
Technology.
Yeah, we can talk through that. Alrighty, I'll put you on speaker. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start off by reporting anything, or do you want to go to salt?
Just with salt, and then you had other things with the FEMA and stuff that you can update them with.
Yeah.
And as far as the salt go, I guess everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
We ended up with three contacts for contractors for salt, and only two of them applied bids, which was Appalachia and Cargill. And Katie, you have to remind me what the prices were. I think Cargill was, or Appalachia was even cheaper, a little bit cheaper than Cargill.
Looking at the paperwork here, Cash, it's both of them are, well, Appalachia is 86 a ton, and Cargill is 86.50 a ton.
Right. It's like 50 cents a ton difference.
And who do we get from now?
We're getting it from Appalachia because last year they were a little bit more because of the service and the supply. Very happy with their supply. You call them up, and the next day they're there, usually. Also, with that being said, they use Casella Construction for hauling in our salt, so we're keeping that local too.
So you're comfortable with sticking with them then?
Oh, definitely. And I like that salt better because it's the bigger nuggets.
Yeah, it doesn't disappear so quick.
Right.
All right, then I'm going to ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion made, Cash by George, second by Rob, to go with Appalachia, or Apple, however how you say it.
Yep.
Yep. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay.
Mike, who do we have on the board there tonight? All four?
Yeah,
Plus
four.
myself?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you're here too.
Plus myself.
Okay. I mean, we can't forget you. I mean, you're an important man to have here.
Well,
Cash, we also
felt better. I'd be there.
we also have a access permit application from Tyler Bovey.
On Knipes Road?
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, about 2 weeks ago, he contacted me.
Yeah.
And I actually went up for a site visit with him. And he does require a culvert.
Yeah.
And I told him I'd like that when the contractor starts, that like to meet with the contractor. And I'm recommending minimum of 30-foot, probably a 40-foot culvert because of the angle of the driveway.
Yeah.
So fuel trucks and garbage trucks or whatever down the road, big equipment don't end up running over the end of the culverts.
All right.
The town takes them over.
what he has on his, permit request is, 40 foot by 15 inch.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
I'm happy with that myself.
okay. You did talk to him, as you pointed out.
Yes, I met with him and his a partner there.
Yeah, okay.
Make a motion to approve with the notes from the road commissioner.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Did you hear that, Cash?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Good.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And this FEMA, update. You want Katie to talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
All right, so hold on.
I've been on with the emails and stuff, so I kind of know what's, transpiring, but Katie can probably explain it better.
All right, hold on.
Josh, can you hear me from there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been kind of giving you updates here and there on the FEMA disaster and the damage sites that we've had. So the FEMA disaster only covers July damages. And from the flooding, we had 5 damaged sites, 2 of which were in July and 3 that occurred in August. So I've been trying to find funds for damages that occurred in August. And I was directed to reach out to AOT because they have a town highway emergency fund. So there's a grant application to fill out for that, along with a letter kind of describing the disaster and why the town can't use their own funds. But I guess I'm looking for some direction on how to move forward with these projects, making permanent fixes. FEMA requires some pretty wordy contracts, and so I don't feel capable of writing a contract or getting a project out to bid, I guess, for the road shoulder that occurred in August or July. So I don't know if we want to go the route of hiring an engineer. I don't know how Cash feels about that. And then we kind of do have a more severe damage that happened in August with the box culvert on East Clarendon Road that I think might require an engineer. And the funds from FEMA and AOT would cover engineering costs. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
There's a match for that, correct?
Yeah, I believe there's a 10% match for the AOT funds and FEMA is 15%. So they cover 75, we kick in 15.
Do we have any engineers in mind, or?
With FEMA, they like to see that you reach out to at least 3 engineers. Tyler, who we've worked with on Creek Road, has been really good. And he actually gave me 2 of his other contacts to reach out to if we do go that route. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is or Cash's.
Katie, I think I saw the email. They're looking at around a 6-foot culvert. Is that correct? For the volume of water in case of a high storm or something?
Yeah, so we had a hydraulic study done on the culvert that was damaged on South Creek Road. And they had some recommendations on replacing it. But we're also still waiting for FEMA and the state to agree on if that culvert was damaged during the flood.
Is that the one way down by Billings Meadows?
Yeah, it's flagged. There's a sinkhole on the road, on the pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you go up over by the old dump. Yeah. Okay.
Now, they're also requiring a cement abutment on each side for wing walls, if I remember right.
Yeah, I just got it today, so I haven't really looked at it too in depth, but they're recommending a corrugated metal pipe with clear span of 87 inches and height of 63 inches, and then recommendations on how far it should be buried.
How wide is the culvert supposed to be?
They recommend a clear span of 87 inches or a corrugated metal pipe with a minimum diameter of 6 feet.
There's that much drop off on the road there, Cash?
This is
No, that's what I'm concerned because
I was gonna say, there's no way there's that much
the
drop
culvert
off.
that's there, the culvert is there. What's that? Around 4-foot culvert. And
Yeah.
actually, what they're recommending is the bottom of a new culvert be sunk in the ground below at least a foot below, if I remember right. I read the email today. I can't remember now too much, but I think it's way overkill. But of course, everybody's, because Irene and everything else, they're overbuilding things.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that road's going to have to be lifted through there.
Well, and the other thing is that just backs up into the swamp when it comes during high water.
Correct. And that's what they don't understand, that it backs up from the creek and goes back up into the swamp, like you just said. There's a lot of, areas there out that they're looking at that whole mountain corridor of drainage. And I don't see a big problem with that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there's less of a problem than what they may envision? Is that what you're after?
Yeah, because the culvert that's there is a roughly 4-foot squash culvert,
Yeah.
and that's been doing fine. I mean, when it floods, that's it. Then it dissipates out when the creek drops.
Well, and if that's the first place that it goes over down there anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Between that and the ledges through there.
Yeah.
well, I guess no one's saying you have to replace it right now. That's just a recommendation if you do.
Does that culvert have a hole in it? Is that why there's a sinkhole there?
Apparently,
says
and
yes, and
I
the
couldn't
FEMA
get
says
down
no.
inside of it,
Yeah.
and we tried to take pictures and stuff, but for some reason he rode it on the outside of it and got up behind the culvert. That's where the sinkhole is.
So we can't actually see a hole that goes through all the way then.
I couldn't, because if there was, it'd be gravel down in the culvert.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I wonder if it's just, when it got real high like that, it just washed out,
Under the
you know,
asphalt.
because of how much water was trying to get through it. So that it, instead of being dammed, it kind of tried to make its own way through.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because it's on the creek side, not the
Yeah,
mountain side. And there could be a weak spot in that culvert, and you won't know until you actually dig it up, or actually somebody climb through there.
Well, I don't see any harm in getting if the first step for FEMA is you got to get 3 quotes on the engineering, we can get the 3 quotes on the engineering. That's not going to hurt anything. And
I
then
think-
maybe from there, maybe FEMA and the state will get on the same page or whatever.
so
I certainly agree with Robert on that we ought to get that process going.
I mean, you're not going to do anything with any of it till spring anyway.
right.
Because, you're not. So if we can get some,
quotes.
get the ball rolling, because we know that none of this moves quickly, unfortunately, when we
Well,
get
I think
into these types of-
after October 15th, you can't do stuff like that anyways, unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But we can always just have somebody go look at it, give us a possible quote.
Yeah, we get a plan in place.
So would you like me to put out a request?
For next meeting, because
proposal.
you'll have to, we will have to approve, obviously, the one of the, you have to get the 3 bids, and then we have to approve one of them, right?
Yeah.
Is a way to start the process.
Right.
And then after, even if we go with the one we've been using, we at least have to do our homework so
Right.
that they're satisfied.
Yeah. So do you want me to list it out by damage site for engineers?
That makes the most sense, and then just have them, if it was me, I'd have them bid the engineering as a group.
Per site.
Yeah, they can break it out per site, but they can do the bid per group. I mean, they can, because you've got, how many sites total in the end?
5.
5.
It's 5.
Yeah.
But I mean, they can at least give you, hey, this is what it's going to cost for the engineering for all 5 sites or whatever.
So if it's anticipated to be over 5,000, do I need to do that as a formal bid? I mean, engineering in our policy is exempt But if FEMA wants to see that we put in the effort to reach out to 3, should I just follow what our policy says about regular?
Well, you still got to. I mean, you have to get the 3 anyway. So, I mean, because
Yes.
it's sitting right here. Your formal, right? Is this different? No, this isn't the full one.
That's your social
Yeah,
services.
this is the other one. So, yeah, you are going to seek 3 bids. So you're gonna have to do the process to seek 3 bids.
Posting it.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I'm trying to clarify. Alrighty. I
Yeah.
will do that.
Yeah.
Do we want a motion on this, Mr. or not?
No, I don't think.
Just do it?
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean,
You mentioned 5. I thought there was 4. You got Coal River. You got the one on East Clarendon Road.
Well, I guess
Got
5
the-
would include the culvert. So is culvert not something you want to broach?
No, if we're gonna have somebody come down, it makes sense to,
do them all.
yeah.
So you've got Cold River Road. You got East Clarendon Road. You've got South Creek Road. What else do you have
So I have South Creek guardrails. That's a damaged site. That's pretty easy.
over here? Yep.
I have the East Clarendon box culvert. I have the Cold River Middle Road Bridge area if we wanted to do something further.
Okay.
And then South Creek shoulder. And then South Creek sinkhole culvert. Which is
Okay,
like
that's
one
fine.
site.
Yeah. it's
What's
fine.
where's the shoulder on South Creek? Which?
Just before the guardrails.
Right by your sugaring operation.
Yeah.
Oh, where it slid in there by the bridge abutments.
Where a little parking
Yeah.
area is. right?
Okay.
By
All
the
right. Yeah,
guardrail.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know where you're talking about. Okay. Okay.
I have a visual.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I will work on that.
Cash, you heard that whole thing and you're in agreement with what we're suggesting?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's where to go with it, and we approve when we get whichever one of the 3 is acceptable.
And we can show the state that we're making an attempt to,
That we did the right thing.
Yeah.
I will send out to you before what like a draft of what I hope to post.
Yep.
Okay.
all right, do you have anything else, Cash, under highway?
There's one thing. I reached out, went ahead for budgeting purposes to replace one of the trucks
Yeah,
and got the bids on a cabin chassis and also a bid on the outfitting the truck with the dump body plows and stuff. I don't know. Talked to Katie about earlier. She got that. And that's just for down the road for in November here when we start budgeting. We can look at and see what we want to do if we want to replace this year, next year.
okay, well, this is the first stage of consideration, so to speak.
Yep. Just so the rest of the select board and the public's aware of it.
Okay. This is not anything definite, it's just a case of, doing some homework.
Doing
on it.
research.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right, and nothing else, though?
I believe that's it. And kudos to my crew that's been sticking with it with 2 of them, getting the equipment ready to go for winter and whatnot.
All right, are you gonna be available later for, personnel and executive session?
Sure.
Or
Yep.
or you wanna stay on the line now?
Yeah, how long be? 20 minutes?
Maybe.
Okay, as long as my phone stays up, it'll be alright.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna move, transfer station. And Horst is here with us, so he's gonna give us a brief report.
All right. I was asked to get some quotes for doors, windows,
I've got it.
Okay.
doors, windows, and floor, and possibly a heat pump. So you have all the
Yep.
copies,
Mm-hmm.
and is there any questions or?
What is, now I realize the heat pump that could be a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
But, on the short notice, something that we could get involved with right away, to seal that place up a little bit.
Right.
So,
We don't have any of this in our budget for this year.
no,
So I say we table all this until for budget for next year. I mean, we've lived through winters before the way it is. So I don't see any reason why we have to do something when we haven't budgeted for it.
did, Heidi give us a report on how much, Katie, how much is in the budget relative to maintenance over there?
Well, I believe there's not much room in the transfer station budget, but the buildings fund that you established has around like 221,000.
And the building fund is not earmarked for any specific
Building.
building at this point.
No, well, it's a municipal maintenance buildings fund. is
Okay,
the-
thank you.
And how much was in it? 200?
I believe 221,000. I believe that's what was moved over.
So Horst, we're getting sidetracked here. What is the biggest, in your opinion, what's the biggest need over there? Like, I mean, obviously it's all, I was one of the ones that was sitting here and kind of charged you to say, hey, get prices for us for budget
Yeah.
time, which we're just, like Cash just messaged, we're just mentioned, we're just starting budget time. So, what, we're talking, this is obviously the master dream here, obviously, but what's the biggest, this is if money was no object. What's the real, in your mind, what's the most specific need that we need to look at?
Okay, we should have the front door and the back door, new ones, because they leak like crazy.
So that's the wooden door that comes
Yeah, the
out,
wooden doors.
Okay.
And there's a wooden door in the back.
that goes into the bays, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
For, in case there's a fire or something.
Yeah.
An escape route.
okay,
And, those two are important.
okay,
The windows, they're plexiglass.
yep,
And either add plexiglass to it, or I brought in the quotes for, windows. But they're stationary, they don't open.
okay,
'Cause the open ones were a lot more. And then, also, the, floor, when you're in the wintertime, when you're in there, a certain amount of time, the floor is ice cold. From the knees down,
sure,
I mean, up here it's hotter than Hades. Down there,
yep,
you freeze. So, that would be important also to, get a subfloor in there. That would be with styrofoam plywood on top,
yep.
2x4s, and then styros in.
So when you've got insulated floor, that's what you're proposing then? Basically build a subfloor on top?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
Because to, spray foam or anything underneath would be great, but, I think that, I don't know, that may be
Yeah.
maybe high.
I don't think you get under there.
No, I don't think that, And,
Is it sitting on concrete or what these days?
no.
good
no,
luck
no,
over there, it's all pole barn.
It's all
Yeah.
pole barn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why everything's cold.
I think
Yeah.
it was 2x6s that they put in.
Was
Plus-
it? Oh, underneath,
Yeah.
yes.
And I guarantee it moves like a pole barn too.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think just to add to the floor, so you get a 2x4,
Yeah,
get the styrofoam that,
in between,
Right.
inch and a half.
and then just put a new, layer of plywood
Right.
or something.
Yeah. And those quotes are in there also from, from R.K. Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dave, he gave us the quote for everything, plus, with the doors and windows, that, and the floor install, and, yeah, and then extra materials, because the front door has two doors, and there'll only be one 36-inch door with a window in it. And the other one has to be closed in, so he has materials for all that also included for that. And if we do any of this, I think we've talked about that also, was the compactor.
Yep,
That will have to be moved
out.
out before anything happens.
yep. That
Is there a
compact-
possibility we'd ever use that again, or,
Compactor? No, I don't think so.
I mean, I can't see any.
I suggested a long time ago and that it be listed for sale, but I don't think it ever went anywhere.
Yeah.
Tom never.
It should be listed for sale
I would agree, because,
because it's, and I mean,
it's a
we're
hell
not
of a
gonna use
paperweight.
it- We're not gonna use it again.
It's a good counter.
Yeah, well, that's what you guys
That's what we
mostly
use
use
it
it for now.
And then we would need a counter that we had talked about possibly.
Yeah, we could build something.
I have one comment.
Go to it.
And this, I'm throwing it out. The windows that come out of the town hall right there, would they be applicable for using them in that room?
Are those, the big ones? The full
Yeah.
size?
Yeah.
Yeah, full size? Well,
They are
Just
dou-
use the sashes.
yeah, just use the sashes and fix
Yeah.
the sashes, and we've done that before. And they are double insulated.
oh, they are. Well, that's fine.
We have windows here.
Actually, you could lay them down, or else
Yeah.
or else when you install them, lay them crossways, or
Yep.
cut it all out and lift them up and down.
Where did those end up, Cash? Do you remember?
They're,
What's that?
they're at
Where
the
are
transfer
they?
They're,
station.
they're, in the bay up there.
They are over there.
Over there.
Because I mean that's another thing when you're, I mean we're talking a shop type situation here. We yanked out the sashes before and just frame in the sashes, and insulate around the sashes, and because if they don't need to open,
Right.
and you've got to, they are double insulated. I know that they're double insulated. They're not the most high quality window. That's why we had to take them out of here ultimately,
Right.
but they were good enough that we wanted to save them. I remember we talked about saving them.
Well, they're certainly better than what's there now.
Yeah.
Can the contractors work with that? Because they'd have
Well, it
to,
depends who we get. And, I'm sure.
Heidi Eccleston probably could do it.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Heidi Eccleston,
Oh,
hometown.
Heidi over there?
yeah, she's,
She's having an operation, and for her back, she's gonna be out of control. I mean, out of commission.
commissions those.
And Ricky Holland, he said he'd be willing to work with the town, and,
But you have to reconfigure the size of the windows that are there now, so that's,
If you, so just from experience, because we've done multiple construction projects at the fair, if we put a window in where the second door is, frame that down and put a window there, could you get away with a solid door? Because I'll tell you right now, solid doors are 10 times cheaper.
oh, the back one, the back door is a solid door.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like if we put if we put one of those sashes and framed it in next to the door that goes out to where the compactor, where you come out of anyway, if we framed it down
Yeah.
and put a solid door with a window next to it, could we get away with that? Because that would cut costs big time.
Well, again, that window would be quite a bit larger than what's there now.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
As soon as you put glass in a door,
Right.
yes,
add $300. I
Yeah,
mean,
at least.
it's just it's crazy.
Well, the difference between, the solid door,
Mm-hmm.
the solid door is $486. And the, one with the 9 light, or just without
Yeah.
the lights in it, is $589.
Did you price them off the rack at Home Depot?
No, no.
Because Home Depot will beat.
Oh, yeah,
I'll tell you
well,
right now, big
no
time.
problem.
Big time.
Big time
that's
compared to
fine.
that price.
That's fine, but, I just got quotes from.
Yeah.
these-
No, I saw that from these, which I appreciate because it's
Right.
good to have comparison
Right.
across the page.
I'd like to chime in on that.
Yep.
My thought is to just go to pay the extra for the 9-light door, because if you put a window beside it, you're going to eat that up in labor and installation and stuff. Plus, you got another airflow of a window.
plus it's
I
easier,
just put a 9-light door in there, yeah, you're going to pay that extra $150, whatever more, but you're going to save that in labor installing another window there.
Well, it's only $100, basically, $103 more.
So, the reality is that before the double door can be replaced, the compactor's got to come out anyway, because you
Right.
can't frame it in and then have, you're
Try
going
and
to
get that
you're going to
out.
be
Floor
undoing
has to
everything.
be done first.
Well, your floor is going to
Else
be
you're
done
gonna have
after.
a different height than the doors.
Your floor is going to have to be done after the compactor comes out.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I
Oh,
mean.
yeah, no.
That's what I
Everything
mean.
has to be done after the compactor comes out.
So, I mean, that's the reality of that for sure.
But
So-
if we go ahead and put a floor in, that's gonna change the whole height and everything for the doors. And then there'll be a special order.
Oh, boy.
But, RK Miles, he has that in there already, because he came and measured what it would be after and before.
Well, I guess it seems to me like we gotta tackle that compactor. Do we need a motion to just put it up for sale, or what?
Well, if we get it out of there, then we can.
I'll
put
second it.
We can put it into the
All right,
shed.
I'll move that we, I'll move that we put the compactor up for sale.
I'll second it. I know we already did the research and found out we own it. I know that
Yeah.
because that was brought up years ago because we thought it was still a Casella item sitting there, and we researched it and determined the town owned it. So
Didn't he say that right in the meeting anyway?
I don't know, but
How do you want it listed?
probably Craigslist. I don't know, Craigslist,
price.
whatever.
How much is it
You're gonna have to research it. You're gonna have to research and see what they go for. I mean, you're gonna like anything. You Google them, you're gonna find what they're going for.
But, all right, there's motion made and been seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay.
Okay, now, Cash, can we get the front end loader over there to pull that out of there?
Yeah, it's going to take some doing. Probably have to have some kind of a dolly
It's gonna
to
take.
put underneath it, lift it, roll it on some roller dollies of some sort. Like a
It's not
creeper type
light.
thing.
Yeah,
But it is in two pieces.
yes, it is.
It's in two pieces.
Yeah,
Come apart.
because the original one that we had there, there were more people waiting in line trying to compact it, so that's when they put the addition.
Added to it, yeah.
Right, Bob, remember? Yeah.
Well, with that being said, I would then make a motion that we move this discussion. Let's start there because that's the first thing that's going to happen. So let's start there, and I would make a motion that we move this discussion to our budget discussion starting in 2 weeks because we're going to be starting budget in 2 weeks. And then we can take a look, and maybe by then we'll know roughly what the compactor is going to bring in, and we can make a plan if we can start picking away at a little bit with what the options are.
I would second that if that's a motion, Bob.
Yeah, so just my simple motion is just to move these two discussions to budget time because they really are budget time discussion.
Now, can I say something still? The doors, they're fiberglass.
Yep.
Now, if you go steel, they're cheaper, but they can rust.
Yep.
So, and a friend of mine, he has a door he has taken out from someplace and 9 light, and he said he'd be willing to let us have it. And it's all the whole thing's there. But it's a steel door.
Is it rusted at all? Have you seen it?
I've seen it. I don't believe there's.
It usually, if they're taken care of, it usually takes quite a while for them to rust.
Gonna say, I had a shop down in Connecticut. It had steel doors on it. It was 40 years old, man. Nothing wrong with them. No rust on them because you paint them.
Yeah, you can because they are paintable. Yeah, that's true. I would maybe say, Horst, for 2 weeks from now, if you can find out what kind of shape that's in,
Okay.
that would be a good step because if it's in good shape,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
it's got to. If it's 9 light, it's obviously an exterior, so it's
Oh, yeah.
so it's insulated.
Right.
All right, there's a motion on the floor, been seconded. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Cash, in the next 2 weeks, can we kind of coordinate with the road crew to get over there and see what we can do to take that out of there?
Yep, it's weather permitting.
Yep, I understand.
Well, just make sure there's no snow or rain, Cash.
Sure.
Just slide easier than.
Cash, do we have forks for the big loader?
Yeah.
We do? Okay.
It's the whole thing of getting it lifted up and getting it to the door, rolling it out, you know. To
Oh,
the
yeah.
door so you
No,
can
that's
grab
exactly
it.
what it's gonna be. Yeah. Yep.
Give me a call, Cash, when you move it. I move machinery all the time, so give me a call.
Yep.
Good.
Definitely.
And so let's make that a priority for the next 2 weeks. And I think it'd be best when the transfer station is not open. So
Oh,
we,
definitely.
yeah, so we don't have people helping out.
Yeah. In the way, yeah.
All right, and then when we start negotiations for our budget, Heidi will be able to weigh in too, and that here's a,
Now,
and we can go move forward with the rest of this.
the horse, the discussion, just to wrap this up, the floor,
Yeah.
they were talking about framing it by, so it looks like it was going to be 2x4s on edge. Is that what they were thinking, or how?
Down.
No, laying down.
Flat.
So they're using it as strapping then.
Yes. And
So they're strapping it and then putting styrofoam in between.
yes.
That will definitely heat that up better.
Yeah, if you use them
Yes
the other
and
way,
no.
it might be
I
bumping
mean,
your head with
it's,
you.
it goes
That's right,
both
yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be too shallow there.
All right.
And if we get doors in there, then there won't be so much draft on the floor.
That's right.
Also.
That's what I'm wondering is if
That
we
would
can,
help.
if we get it tightened up, if it's a possibility.
And it
The
radiates
problem is
still.
that when you have the public there in and out all day long,
The doors are open.
the doors
Yeah,
are open,
that's
so
true,
I don't
too.
care what you do. The doors are open.
Although how much in the
No,
wintertime?
they're not. In the wintertime, they're always closed.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come up to us or we go out and we close the doors.
But you're opening and closing the doors. Every
Well,
time
yeah,
you go in
of
and out,
course.
you're opening and closing the
What else
door.
we gonna do?
That's what I
We
said.
could put a little window there and you can open the window and,
Yeah. Who mentioned that? Somebody mentioned that.
wasn't me, but
No, somebody mentioned that.
Okay. Well, like I say, the first step is to work on getting. I mean, nothing can be done till that compactor's out of the way. So then we can look at it and see what there is for funds and
yeah, we
take a
will.
look at it.
Or, so, we still use it for the counter there and stuff. If you advertise it and once you find somebody, then move it out.
Yeah, it's either that or just move it out so that this isn't gonna hold up the rest of our project.
Yeah.
Put it into the garage
Yeah.
in the back there.
Okay.
And then if somebody wants to look at it, they can look at
Oh,
it,
yeah, right.
even when it's snowing or raining or whatever.
Yep. Okay.
And
All right. That's
then it's not no way, it's not impeding our,
right.
trial and error when
Right,
it comes to
exactly.
rebuilding.
Okay, that sounds
It's good first step.
good.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
All right,
Thank you for the report.
Yes, thank you, Horse. This is definitely good to have for budget time. So good.
If we're talking about transfer station, there are 2 packets floating around from Dave Potter on the solid waste stuff.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
for
it's
your
over
review.
here.
Anything major that we should be aware of?
I haven't reviewed it. But he did say that he had questions about the financials because he was a little worried about them, but he talked to Mark Shea who explained them better and they're in a good financial
Yes.
state.
study this, it's not too
I-
thick.
That I was on. You forget how long I sat on that board.
All right, let's move along. Thank you, Horst, I appreciate
Thank you, sir.
your efforts. All right, approval of select board warrants. Everything's right here. Anybody in public wants to come? Guess, Teresa?
Sure. So we wanted to bring back up, and we're not looking for a decision this evening, just consideration around what happens when concerned citizens, like the Quarterline Road Group, just as an example, bring a safety concern to the attention of the board, and then it gets taken up under other business without the citizens knowing. Now, this isn't a criticism of the board, because on July 24th, there was a meeting, and it is perfectly appropriate to bring information up under other business. We understand that. So what our question is what can be put in place so that if a concern is brought up, that it gets on the agenda in a way that citizens know that it's there, so that we could be part of the conversation. So again, we can't say enough. We're not criticizing the board. The board did absolutely nothing wrong. It was proper protocol, proper procedure for the type of agenda that we have. The question is what could be done differently in the future? Is there another process that could be considered? And not looking for an answer this evening. It's really just a question, because we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And you all have been good about making sure that, it's on the agenda so that we know that we should come and listen and bring our thoughts. But something else could come up with other folks. So I don't know if you have any feedback or any insight on that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, having the history of being on the board and stuff, what we've done over the years is if there is an emergency, then the board has the right and privilege to call an emergency meeting. And we could do things like that. And many times it's an emergency request from the public. Now, if you just have a request to be on one of our open meetings, then you go through, you know how it works, you go through Katie, write down usually what the subject would be, and then Katie would talk to the select board chair, whoever that may be at the time, and the select board chair has the right to put something on an agenda. And then if it's an emergency thing that you all of a sudden want to come down while we're having an open meeting, this is when we, in the very beginning of the meetings, we have, is there any agenda additions or deletions? So that's how.
I think
I don't think that's what she's talking about.
That's not what she's talking about. But
Okay, that's what I'm talking.
This board has gotten into trouble before by not warning the public about a decision that a citizen would come in, the board has made a decision. I can think of the gun sanctuary thing where the board kind of got in trouble because we made the decision, right? I wasn't on the board at the time, but you made the decision right then and there instead of getting feedback from the public on that. And I understand what she's talking about. And that concern that I think George has brought it up about the letter, and
Well,
we probably should have let it sit and because it wasn't an emergency. There was nothing emergency about it.
So I mean, this goes to Shelley and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago too. The fact that we, and I think just knowing, it's been a conversation multiple of us have had over the years that sometimes we need to be cautious of the it's almost a disease of the urgent, right? I mean, the fact that everything gets brought to the table and there's a feeling of urgency. And I think, honestly, just speaking from the number of boards that I'm privy to, boards, obviously, it's not like we're meeting once a week. There's sometimes 3 weeks. There's sometimes, whatever it is. And you get into a routine where if something comes up, you deal with it because you're not going to talk for the next 2 weeks or whatever. And what, in this case, that I think you're speaking to is the fact that it was a select board concern at the end of a meeting.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
And it came up, and then it
We
ended
acted
up,
upon it.
before it was done, it was acted on. And what Shelley and I talked about, and what in hindsight I saw, was the fact that there was no reason that we couldn't have said that night, you know what, we're going to push pause, because we have the right to push pause. We could say, okay, we're not going to take any action right now. We can tell Katie even to take pause, like we're not drafting, we're not doing anything right now, pause, and warn it for 2 weeks later, and everybody's had a chance to think about it, and then it gets acted on. So I think that's what you're asking. You're asking what happens, and within the open meeting law, I know that it, like you said, it's perfectly legal. There's nothing illegal about it. If we're talking policy, I, for one, would say you got to be cautious how you word that policy, because you don't want to block us from being able to deal with the emergent that's an emergency that you got to deal with. Because there are sometimes those things that come up that can't wait 2 weeks, that they've got to, it's, time sensitive, whatever, it's got to be dealt with. So, when Shelley and I were talking, I said, in my hindsight, absolutely, that should have been something that just should have, hey, we're pausing, but this is going to be picked up and talked about in 2 weeks.
But
So,
during, now, my take was, when this was brought up at the end of a meeting, does anybody on the select board have a concern?
Mhm.
That's how this became. But the concern, in my mind, was that you folks wanted us to have reaction right away. So when this was brought up, that's how I felt that we should act on it.
No, I think the reason we acted on it was because we wanted to stop Rutland Town from wasting any time coming up with a proposal
That
for what it would cost to have us do it.
when we had
So I
already
think that's
said that we
why-
weren't going to do that.
Yeah, we already said that we weren't gonna do it, so it was just a letter, send a letter out saying that, don't waste your time. I think that's why we did it in such a hurry, but
That's exactly.
again, we probably could have sat on it.
you could have paused it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason it couldn't. And even within a pause, Katie can say, hey, even in that case to Rutland Town, what could have been said was, hey, right now, just hold off on doing anything right now. The board's going to pick this up and talk about it in 2 weeks. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that either. So there's options. And again, I think we get consumed in the urgent. It's just natural with these positions. Because, like I say, it's 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks sometimes. If it's a holiday, sometimes it's longer than that. And we just get jamming and we go, and sometimes that's where the pause needs to happen. So I know I made a verbal commitment to Shelley that I was going to be more mindful of it in the future, because I very much see the point. And as far as beyond that, I guess we'd have to talk about it and see if there's anything else. But I mean, I think the first thing comes from the board being aware that this was something that took place.
Concerned by the public.
Yeah.
If I could chime in on just a second. The notion of, it says select board member concerns, which is fairly general in nature, and a concern to me is just an information piece that you want to share with, and which is what I've tried to use it for most any time I've come up with something. And maybe we need to think about adding something like information only, or whatever, kind of remind all of us that its purpose is not necessarily to create an action.
Well, and I think,
Not that we couldn't do it if it's an emergency.
and I think, in all honesty, just as one member sitting here who was not able, because I know that action came after a meeting that took place in the other town
Yes.
that folks went to, that not all of us were available to go to. And I think what should have happened was an agenda item under road, probably road, because it was a road item, highway, and there should have been a report out time.
Yep.
And that's what should have happened. And I'm not really sure,
Yeah, because it was George made the concern. He could have had the concern
could have been a
on the
report.
agenda.
Well, what I said at the time, if we could check back on the minutes, of course, what I said simply was that we attended a meeting, and then Mike elaborated a little bit, which
Yeah, that whole conversation, your
Yeah.
concern, should have been on the agenda,
And I
and
think
it could have been.
it could have been.
Sure.
And I think what ultimately came out of it too was, and again, I'm sitting here as a different person who wasn't at the meeting. I think the reason concern came up and why action got taken, right, wrong, or indifferent, was there was a feeling that some of what got conveyed in that meeting might have been different than what was decided here as a group. So I think that's one of the reasons why all of a sudden it became urgent, and the pause would have been a better option so that everybody had a chance to understand. Because I'll be honest, I think you guys went to that meeting and our meeting was maybe 2 nights later. I doubt their minutes were even out yet. So I don't.
They were out, because I read them.
Unofficial or official? Probably unofficial.
Probably
at that
unofficial.
Point. So I mean, so that's the other piece of it too. I don't think the whole board had a chance to fully digest what was going on yet. So that's another piece of it.
But there's probably very few things that will come up under the select board concerns that can't be on the agenda.
It should be that
Because
way.
these guys, because we all know what's going on.
Correct.
You know,
It should be that
If I have a concern, I should say, hey, Katie, we should put this on the agenda.
Or it's minor things too, like Bob, when you were on the board, you would make Cash aware of you've been driving around town and you saw, hey, there's a few potholes here I saw that didn't look like they've been filled yet, or there's stuff like that comes up, but that's obviously minor compared to what we're talking about.
Right.
So
Yeah, again, my view has always been it should be primarily an information time period for,
I agree.
no, I agree. I agree with that.
so.
Well, I thought when we were doing that, when we were asking each member, what their concern was, do you have a concern, stuff like this, for me, it was just the clarity of actually what took place at that meeting that we went to, and then the discussion that prompted. Maybe we should have not, made something
We should have
official.
stopped after delivering the information. That's
Yeah.
what should happen.
Sure.
Especially when it's a concern that's brought by the citizens of the town.
Yeah, and that's why
Yeah.
we got into that in the first place, that discussion. Does that answer?
It does. I really appreciate the,
Yeah.
the thoughtfulness of the conversation here, and not asking for perfection, because sometimes things get brought up, but that you are, like you said, Robert, first step is being more aware. Had time, we have an example, and that's a good first step. There are a couple of other questions for meeting procedures that I do have as well. So one of them is like a timing thing. So I have an example. Again, this is not here to criticize, it's to understand. So at a meeting in August, there was discussion around, reaching out to Rutland Town, asking Cash to reach out to Rutland Town, share contractor information. It was at that point, and having a select board member be part of that conversation so that there wasn't any confusion. And it wasn't until September that anything actually happened, and it happened differently than what was agreed to. So what our expectation was is that, Cash was going to call that week, and he actually said, hey, I'll call the next day. He was supposed to have a select board member be part of that conversation so that there wasn't any confusion, and that didn't happen, and it didn't happen in the same time frame. So again, we're not looking for an answer tonight as much as we're saying, hey, here's how it's looking from our side of things. What is the procedure? What is the meeting procedure when timelines aren't able to be met, or there's nothing reflected in the discussion or in the meeting as to why the timeline got pushed off, as to why what was agreed to with regard to a select board member in this example being part of that, what happens then? And should that be something that we're paying attention to and bringing back to the board? So again, not looking for anything from you tonight other than just bringing that to your attention, because the meeting minutes do reflect, and the PEG TV tape shows that that's what was agreed to, and there isn't anything that happens until a month later. So for us, on our end, we're looking at the urgency and the safety of the situation, which you all know that's our greatest concern. Time is marching on, and still we don't have a satisfactory result from our perspective. And last, I also want to mention, we're not sure what to do now that the October 5th meeting happened with Rutland Town. They specifically say, have asked Clarendon to reconsider, and they reconsider the proposal and actually look at a proposal. And Mike, you asked, well, what would they be willing to pay? And they're saying, well, we can't even get there because we can't write you a proposal because you told us not to do that. So we don't know what to do with that, from a meeting procedure, because select board members were at that meeting. When that request is brought up, are you to bring it back to get it on the agenda? Should we get it back on the agenda? Is it just a collaborative effort? Is there protocol for that? Because we don't know that process either.
I think, let me throw something at you. When we decided not to go that route, in other words, and then Cash had some issues with trying to talk to contractors as well as somebody from Rutland Town. Finally, he got the contact information, my understanding is, from the contractors. Then he contacted Rutland Town, and that took a while to do that. As far as...
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
I had called Dave Sears, and it was quite a while. I left him voicemail. It was quite a while before he got back to me.
And that was the other thing. I remember you telling me that.
But I'm going to speak on that because there's a difference of opinion about that, and this was unsolicited. I happened to be talking with Dave Sears when he was ditching the road, and he brought up, not because I asked, that he received a phone call on a Friday. They don't work on Fridays. They work 4 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday, and he called back on Monday. So there wasn't any delay on his end in getting back.
Is that what you remember, Cash?
No, it was quite a while. But I don't know. I just had enough of it.
So has Rutland?
I can't twist somebody's arm to call me back when they don't. It's like the paving companies.
At that meeting, I was under the impression that Rutland Town was gonna take care of it because they had said that they had bought a couple of trucks and that it wasn't up to us to even reconsider because they were gonna take care of it. They had bought I think they said 2 trucks, right?
The plowing's still going to be an issue for them because they are plowing pavement, and I can't explain it, but I bet Mr. Austin here can explain
I
it.
understand.
That it requires different equipment.
I understand, but
so
they said that they
still-
bought 2 trucks and that they were gonna be able to handle it.
Well, in the minutes
What's
it
happening with
says,
them is they're spreading pure salt,
Yeah, I know.
just like we are, and we shouldn't be, because they spread salt because their drainage runs into Rutland City's sewer system. And so any sand that goes into the sewer system then naturally has to be processed, and it costs money. It doesn't go through the sewer system for free. So they spread salt, where we spread salt, and we shouldn't be. We should be spreading sand with a salt mix in it. And you can spread 3 times as much sand with a salt mix for the price of a load of salt. But neither here nor there, with them having only 5/10 of a mile of road that's dirt, they're not set up with the sand and stuff. So they're making an extra trip all the way back up to Post Road or wherever to get, a bucket of salt or a bucket of sand to come back and sand that 3/10 of a mile of road. When our
Well,
trucks,
here's the situation that I got, and I sent an email to Shelley. I got a call from a guy who lives in Clarendon, on a private road in Clarendon. And he said, if you guys are going to do Rutland Town's road, why don't you do my road? He lives in Clarendon.
well,
There's 35 private roads in Clarendon.
okay,
Should we do all those?
The answer to that's pretty simple.
the answer to that is, are them private roads, do they have the base in them?
Well, Rutland Towns doesn't.
Regular road does, or Rutland Towns does. Rutland Towns has a base down through there. That road's been down through there longer than any of us people here.
Shelley,
It might not have been that good a road.
did you have something, Shelley?
The Vermont statutes, highways, Title 19, highways, Chapter 027, private roads. It says, in the absence of an express agreement or requirement governing maintenance of a private road, when more than one person enjoys a common benefit from private road, each person shall contribute ratably to the cost of maintaining the private road and shall have the right to bring a civil action to enforce the requirements of this section. That's from the state.
Okay.
The other answer
Alright,
to
so
that,
is your private citizen willing to pay?
yeah, that's the point.
That's what they do. That's what they do. The people that live on private roads, they have somebody come and plow it.
They're not
Right.
paying Clarendon.
No, they're paying the private, so that's what Rutland Town can do.
Rutland Town was willing to pay you guys. But you wouldn't look at their proposal. You weren't even willing to look at their proposal of what they wanted to propose, or propose to pay you guys to plow and sand and to grade whenever you graded the north end of the Quarterline Road.
So they'll grade it now that Clarendon is not honestly being a very good neighbor, in our opinion, and putting our safety at risk. But the plowing is still an issue. And the highway minutes specifically say, Selectman DiNardo asked the Clarendon Board to reconsider their decision not to enter a maintenance agreement with our town for that section of road. Clarendon Select Board member Mike Klopshin asked what a payment arrangement to the town of Clarendon would be. Selectman DiNardo said that the discussion stopped when the Clarendon Select Board said they were not interested. So they clearly would like us to reconsider. And again, I'm bringing this up because of meeting procedures, because it's not being reconsidered. It's been asked to be reconsidered. We don't need to talk about that tonight. But we're not going away, folks. We want,
So this is the this
we're-
is the first I've heard of Rutland Town asking us to reconsider. So
That's why I'm
did they send a letter? Did they send, because like that would imply that they're going to send a letter to us asking us to reconsider.
doesn't say they're sending a letter.
Because
If you want them to send a letter, we can ask them to send a letter. But the question is, how does it get back here so that we don't keep looping around?
they would have to send a letter. I mean, there's no, so it's not expected that we read all of our bordering town minutes. Like if they're
That's
gonna
fine.
if they're gonna ask us to reconsider, they've got to send something to us asking us
However,
to reconsider.
There were board members at
At
that meeting.
Four of you were there and you heard them.
That was the meeting that,
That was October 4th,
Fourth,
or
yeah.
5th, excuse me. October 5th, the Highway Committee
but
meeting.
Cash, they never called or sent anything to you, did they?
No, I haven't heard nothing.
But they wouldn't because they're stuck because you told them not to write a proposal. They're telling you in this meeting, four of you, we want you to reconsider. We don't know how to get it on the agenda, if it's the board's responsibility to get it on the agenda, if we should get it on the agenda, because here's another kind of gap for us.
When we were at that meeting, and that was brought up, maybe that very statement, did any of the four of us answer that back?
It's not in the minutes, and I don't know if they videotape. I didn't get a chance to look. But our question really this evening is, and again, it's not a criticism, it's a gap. And we are truly wondering when something like this comes up and there are select board members at a meeting, is it something that select board members are responsible for paying attention to and getting back on the agenda? Is it something that we as citizens, kinds of backing up the select board, that we should also be paying attention to so that we can get it on the agenda? Because we've not bumped into this before, and maybe you haven't either.
Well,
Yes, when
we
you
have no
talk-
power over the Rutland Select Board, so if they want to send us a proposal, go for it. There's nothing stopping them from sending us, just because
You
we sent them.
refused the first time, so that's what they're
Well-
saying you to reconsider. So if you're willing to reconsider, I'll call Bill Sweet tomorrow and tell him to send a letter to the Clarendon Select Board. That's,
We can do that.
we can do that.
So I guess my question, because we're talking two different things here. They requested, at least there was conversation at one point, and it was obviously before this meeting that you're referencing, that I wasn't at. There was conversation surrounding the contractors, which I understand your point about it supposedly took too long for them to get that information, but they were provided information. Where are they at with that information now? I mean, I'm sure you guys have been keeping up with them. So where are they at? Have they started soliciting bids? Have they started the process with the contractors? Because that was kind of where I was left
Yeah,
in the discussion.
That's kind of what they said at that meeting, and they had bought 2 trucks, and I kind of got the impression that they were going to handle it.
Because I mean, the best of all worlds, because there's liability questions when you cross town lines and all of that good stuff. The best of all worlds is if they do hire a contractor and just the contractor does it. That's obviously, it solves everybody's problem. There's a contractor that's liable. There's a contractor that's on the hook for it. When it's not done, that contractor gets called, and it's taken care of. And Clarendon equipment's not going across town lines. And all of that. So I guess my question just is where they're at in that discussion, because if they're seeking bids,
Can I just, because there are now a few threads going on. There is no liability issue. I don't know why that keeps coming up. There is no liability issue for a business transaction that you enter into with another town. I own my own business. If I have a client that wants a certain service, we enter into an agreement. I provide that service. It's a business transaction. That's the same thing that they're asking for. Same thing they have with Mendon, same thing they're working out with West Rutland. So there's that one piece. So we shouldn't even be worried about liability. Robert, you're spot on. If there were no agreement and it was just a handshake deal, and no one wants that, that's not what they want. The other part of that is their contractor is going to have the same issue that Jim is talking about. And what we do know is that they will not get to plow that section of road, the half-a-mile section of road that we're talking about, or actually it's going to be the 3/10 of a mile. They will not get to plow that section of road for 1 to 2 days, which means we now continue to have a safety issue. So if they are willing to pay Clarendon, and they said if it takes you longer to go, and this was way back when we first had this conversation, that would be in the proposal so that you all would be able to see all of the information in writing. If it takes the town, time to go back and load up the sand, they said, as I recall, include that in your, in the hours. So it's not that Clarendon is taking on any hours that they wouldn't be paid for. They want to pay us. It's a simple transaction. It's 3/10 of a mile, half a mile if we would be kind enough, which is what they want, for us to plow to the pavement. And it just seems like, yes, they are looking at contractors. They have no choice. It's not going to solve the problem. And it sure seems like if West Rutland and Mendon can enter into a friendly arrangement for the little bit of road there is there, why can't we? And we keep hearing it's a precedent. It is not a precedent. It is a business transaction. It has nothing to do with private roads. It has nothing to do with any other roads bordering other towns. It has to do with this section of road that is a safety issue and that we ought to be able to take care of. For goodness sakes, if we added up the number of hours we have all spent on this, that road could have been plowed a dozen.
Right now, we only have 2 road workers,
And you're hiring a third
possibly.
part-time. Well, you
If
will
we-
be
if we can
because you're
find
interested,
anybody.
and you're probably going to make your decision tonight.
no, we're
No,
not.
we're
don't
not.
Have, we have no
We have
viable candidates
nobody
right now.
that wants,
Okay.
we
Well,
we
that's-
did
that's
interview
worth-
somebody, but no.
But still,
The time
neither here nor
the
there.
time that it would take them to plow down through there and back up through and sand it would be almost faster than turning around in that little cubby hole which is on Rutland Town's Road, excuse me too, on talking about going over the border. We're not turning around in Clarendon, we're turning around in Rutland Town. So, but you.
Well,
could-
we're talking snow tonight, maybe? We have one guy, because the other guy's on vacation.
Well, it's 20 minutes, and we know that. Factually, it is adding 20 minutes onto the route.
If that long.
And we know that. We've heard Jim's talked about it, and the math has been
And-
done by another,
And
by
the trucks, the trucks have gone down down there and turned around in Billings' driveway more often than you might think, and everything else, rather than trying to turn around in that little hole. And so if the truck's going down through there, why not leave the blade down, sprinkle a little sand? You're not talking a wheelbarrow load of sand down through there and back. They don't use a wheelbarrow load of sand on the old Quarterline Road. And don't tell me different, because I worked for the town for 11 years. I know exactly where you're at. I don't
Like
want
I
to
said,
argue that one.
we're talking, we got one guy
Yeah,
for tonight.
well,
and he
One
has
guy.
a plow.
He's got to do the whole town.
right. But once again, this isn't the problem. Cash should be able to. In years past, we always had spares in the town of Clarendon that came in and helped with storms and everything else. And every road commissioner, right up through to Cash, that I know of, had somebody could call on the phone and say, "Hey, we need you to come and help." And
It's a different
They-
world today.
they had-
People don't want to work.
well, I know people don't want to work.
You
But
can't
I've never
find
been-
anybody that's
I've
qualified.
never been asked to be a spare and everything else. I know every town road there is in Clarendon. Probably better than some of you guys do and everything. But I've never been asked to be a spare. I don't need a CDL to run a truck anymore. In town of Clarendon, municipal does not need a CDL.
Our policy requires it.
Well, that's your policy. But it, I mean, Ed Baker, I know he'd be more than willing to come in and spare. He doesn't want to work 20 hours a week for you guys, but he'd be more than willing to spare if you needed help and everything.
We actually have something from Ed, about part-time. So,
But
a request.
and I can probably bring you another dozen guys that'd be willing to be on a spare call. If you guys are tight with help and everything else. I realize that the two guys that you got working right now, I mean, you only got one road crew guy that lives in Clarendon anyway. The other two live 20 minutes away.
Well, it sounds like that's part of the solution, Jim. He's got contacts. So, am I hearing that we should follow up? Shelley's willing to follow up with Bill Sweet and ask them to put together a proposal for reconsideration.
Cash, I want you to weigh in on that.
First of all, I think you gotta talk to the select board or Bill Sweet and find out where they're going with that this time. If they already solicited bids or whatever.
All right. Do you want these folks to check in on that, or do you want to do it?
I can do that.
Tomorrow,
And
right?
I'll actually, if that's the case, Robert, Art, what do you think?
For what?
On checking with Bill Sweet to find out where they're at with it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, I feel like I'm finding out tonight that I'm out of the loop on some things. So the reality is that where I was left in the discussion before tonight was that that's what the current understanding was. So,
I mean, I can reach out to Bill Sweet. That's no problem at all.
well, either that or have Katie reach out directly, and then the communication can go to all the board members at once
That'd be better.
What am I reaching out directly for? What is
to find out an update on the fact that there was questions raised about their discussion about private contractors, because that's what the board's, at least my understanding, is where it was kind of left. until this conversation tonight, and what that was. I would respectfully disagree with your comment about private contractors, because I worked with one for 10 years. And if it's a private contractor, that's going to be on their list, and they're going to be doing it in order with everything else. So it's going to have to be completed. You know, the contractors have their list, and ultimately it's going to be what priority Rutland Town places on that contractor for that.
That wasn't my point. My point was a private contractor that is plowing the pavement, as Jim described, has a different setup they need to do when they're doing the sand.
Correct, but my
So-
understanding was that they were getting a private contractor specifically for the dirt portion, because they were handling the tar themselves.
Don't know.
That's
That
what-
was, that was
Would be a
my
question
understanding.
asked.
That's what it sounded like to me at the meeting.
That
What they
they-
would prefer is for us to reconsider and just take care of it. We are there anyway. That's what they would prefer. So that needs to be part of the question, in my opinion, needs to be that are they willing to provide a proposal for our reconsideration? Because that's what's in their minutes.
I think what folks here are looking for is a progress report from Rutland Town in terms of, have they contacted contractors? Do they have some under contract? And are they gonna do it? And do they have a schedule? And will the schedule be maintained? That's what we're I think I'm hearing that people wanna hear about.
That would be my question. I mean, so, and I realize that I never thought I would be sitting here saying that I'm one of the older board members, but I am. If anything, we set, and Mike will probably remember this, and George, it might have even been before you went off when you and I were on together.
Yep.
If any we're talking about precedent tonight, precedent was set back years ago, because we had one of these approaches actually from IRA for the other side of Tier Road. And at that time was when we kind of set initially that we would not entertain doing other towns' roads. So
I don't remember it happened any time that I was.
it might have been after you came off then, because
I
it might have been in the interim. Bob was probably here, but that was how we were approached, and it was the board at that time. Now that doesn't say that boards can't change over the years, but at that time it was, and I'm gonna guess that was during Daryl's tenure.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
prior
it would
to,
Be
have
my
to be.
guess.
but prior to, now,
But
remember this, Bob. Prior to Daryl being on was Norm. And then once in a while, Norm would go all the way down to the blacktop. And then that was when the blacktop was even further down than where it is now. So that he could turn around, and when he did that, Billy Catrati, Louis Senecal, yeah, and that's when they were all on. And that's what they used to do all the time. I don't know when that changed, because I'm not a road commissioner, and I don't, whether Daryl changed it or what, but
So back to the question of who's gonna ask Rutland Town for a report. Is Katie gonna do it, or?
I'll make it a motion that we just have Katie reach out so that the whole board can get the response via email and find out where they're at. And she can even express to them that there was concern brought up at our meeting regarding the reconsider comment. But so, and help me understand this, and I'm going to pause my motion for a moment. Help me understand this, because you all went to that meeting. Was the meeting you went to at the beginning of October, was that the highway committee or was that the select board? Rutland Town.
Highway.
Okay, so highway committees don't have any authority to act on their own until a select board. So a request to reconsider would have to come directly from their select board.
Yes.
That's just a committee discussion. So if, I guess what I would say is that concern came up, and they would have to have some sort of formal request from their select board or whatever
Yes.
if there's
That'd be
going to
fine.
be some sort of a discussion. But I'd like to first off know, because again, the best of both worlds is a private contractor, where they're at with the private contractor. That's what I would like to hear.
Yeah, because we did, or Cash did, in one of our previous meetings, agree to give him some information. And Cash, you're right with that. And as far as I'm concerned, that's where it stopped. After that, we thought that they were happy with that resolution. However, now we don't know, and to Rob's point, sounds to me like we have to find out if they did. That's what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have they solicited? Have they, I mean, I guarantee you there's tons of private contractors up there that do private driveways that probably would put a bid in to do the road on their way up through, so.
As long as it takes care of our safety issue.
It's,
You know,
it's
if
the
it-
public safety
Yep.
piece.
It is absolutely public safety. Because if a private contractor can't get there for a day or two, it's still a public safety issue for us. Our road crew is already there and doing a great
This is,
job.
this is
plowing
the
that.
same argument that the guy lives on a private road. He said, safety. I said,
Lives on
yeah.
a private road, Art, not a public road.
It's not on a
It's
public
different.
road.
It's not the same.
Yeah, let me talk about that. You guys interrupted me when that came up before to Art. I understand that some people will say, well, gee whiz, I'm a private road, why can't you plow me if you're plowing the Quarterline Road in Rutland Town? Well, the answer is, Rutland Town is willing to pay for it. If you want us to do your private road, we'll, pay us.
Well, he did say that we don't give him a break on his taxes.
Well, yeah, but that.
And there was,
still-
and he says, I don't know where he lives, but he said there's 4 people on his road that pay taxes.
Well, that's fine, but the point, my friend,
It's
is,
still
the
a private
answer
road.
is that we charge for it just like you charge Rutland Town, and maybe allow us to have enough money to have another road crew member.
And I don't have kids in school anymore. Shelley's never had kids in school.
I don't either.
My taxes.
I don't either.
Same for all of us.
So that-
We're
there we
all,
go.
that's
Yeah,
an
that's
argument
it.
that's, and
Nobody gets a break on their taxes.
every year we pass the tax rate and we publicly say right to that camera that
Yeah.
you gotta reach out to Montpelier about the tax rate for the
That's it.
schools, cause we have no control over it.
None whatsoever.
I think it's helping, folks on the private road to understand that it is different and here's how it's different. And if you want the same thing, then this is what you need to do and here's the state statute on it.
All right, so what's your motion, Rob?
My motion was that Katie reaches out to Rutland Town to get a progress report and to impress to them the
Willingness for us to hear?
this discussion tonight, that there's some obscurity and understanding of where things stand right now. So are they formally asking us to reconsider? And personally, if they're formally asking us to reconsider, we've got to and I want to say this with all due respect. Not willing to put forth any numbers is kind of a cop-out. Like, if this board was going to somebody, go back and turn the flip side on the IRA situation, right? IRA reached out to us how many years ago it was and wanted us to do part of Tier Road. It's probably about the same length of road, to tell you the truth.
It's actually less.
Okay, so, and we at that point said, nope, we're not doing other towns' roads. That's it. That's where we stand. And, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would have probably had at least a number to throw out to say, hey, for what, would you be interested or would you be willing to do it for this much a year, or we'll pay you this much, material plus hours or whatever. I mean, there's got to be something that is willing to be talked about. So
I think if you go back, and I don't know if they take the minutes of that meeting of the highway committee,
They didn't.
or if it's just their minutes didn't capture that level of detail, but what they said is they'd like to put together a proposal for consideration, and they would also like, with that proposal, to understand what Clarendon was looking for. So it was a negotiation, but unfortunately, that part of the conversation you're talking about, Robert, apparently was coming through the proposal and then negotiation for the amount from there.
So, but again, so if that's a committee level, has that gone to the select board? Because the board would have to act on it, because a
Well,
committee can't act on their own.
The select board must have acted on it because the highway committee said we'd like to send you a proposal, right? If what you're saying is accurate?
Well, at least in our situation, if we had a committee, the board would have to approve their proposal. Like,
Yep.
it would have to go into a public meeting. So if that's the case, you should be able to pull select board meetings from that town and be able to see the proposal in writing.
I'm not sure why we need to do that if.
No, but
the
I'm
highway committee-
I'm saying that's what would have had to have happened in order for it to get to that point.
But if there
I'm
is
talking
a,
procedures.
but if there is a proposal, it has to come from the select board to our town.
Select board, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna go.
Gotcha. So maybe that's what they intended to be saying at the highway committee
Oh,
meeting.
or-
I don't know.
Well, the person at that meeting that said that was a select board member.
Yeah.
That's
And
right. That's
Katie,
right.
if you want to draft a
I will.
draft email, I'm willing to give you, I'm sure we all are willing to give you input on
I will
the types of
definitely-
questions, based on the discussion tonight, the types of questions we ultimately need to ask. Because
All right.
we don't want anything lost in translation.
So, do you want to read Robert's
I
motion?
I don't want to read it because it's a little.
I can shorten it up for you, just so
Yeah.
it's a motion for you to reach out, draft a letter to the, I guess it's Bill Sweet, right?
Drafting a letter and email.
Drafting an email, Bill Sweet, requesting an update on the contractor discussion.
Their
Or-
plan for
or a
using
proposal.
contractors to maintain their portion of the dirt
Well,
line road.
Because in my mind, that's the first question.
Yes.
If that answer to that question is, oh, we're in process and we're soliciting bids, then it's kind of, the process is down the road. If they come back and say, well, we really haven't done that yet,
I'm sure they have.
and we're really hoping that you'll reconsider, that's a whole nother discussion. Like there's two directions that this is gonna go. Like
That's right.
you got a Y here.
That's
that
correct.
you gotta go, they're going one way or the other. So that's where it's at.
The and, though, is if those private contractors, the timing of when they would be plowing. Because if it's.
Which
if
is
it's
something that I would
delayed-
encourage you folks, that has to be a conversation with Rutland Town. Because, again, going back, and I worked for a private contractor for 10 years, we had our list, and and sure, they may pay a little more for it, but if that road is on the list to be open by 7 a.m., it's on the contractor that it's got to be open by 7 a.m.
Wouldn't we want to know that as a select board?
That's part of the questions we're going to ask
Okay.
through her.
The timing. Thank you.
That's
Okay.
the first question is, are they soliciting any or not? But again, saying that, oh, a private contractor's not going to get it for 2 days, that's not, or I mean, again, I worked in that realm. That's not the reality. The private contractor's going to get to it when you tell the private contractor it has to be gotten to.
So we want to make sure we understand the timing that Rutland Town is giving the private
Absolutely.
contractor.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Then if they come back and say they haven't found anybody or anything, are you guys willing to get a proposal from them this time? Or are you just gonna say no again and
So
you know,
any
'cause you
piece
don't
of
have
paper,
any idea what they were even proposing?
if they produce a viable proposal on this table from their board to ours, I, for one board member, will at least consider it. But I will tell you that I'm coming strongly from that position we took years ago with IRA. And maybe I should have been better at conveying that when this whole discussion started early on, because that's a lot of where I land. But that's me. I'm one of 5 people.
I guess
So
the question I got too is, because I haven't been over there in many years, with the town crew, where do they turn around over there on Tier Road?
Weavers.
Weavers?
Just barely, same as up where you guys are. Just barely across the line. They turn around in a pocket. It's the same scenario.
Been doing that for years.
Yep, same scenario.
So I do have a question on what's Clarendon's policy on plowing class 4 roads in the town of Clarendon?
They're not maintained in
No,
winter.
we-
So Knipes Drive, according to the V-Trans map, 0.26 miles is a class 4 road.
That's the very top, isn't it, Cash? Don't we stop?
Not according to the person that lives at the end of the road.
Okay. Well, that's news to me.
Just saying.
That's news to me.
Cash, are you there still?
Yep, I'm here. And that's news to me, too.
Yeah.
That we don't stop at the end of the class 3.
Apparently, I don't know where it is.
No,
It's
Knipes.
down by Kingsley's Bridge.
Knipes by Kingsley Bridge.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
The very end of it's class 4, right? If you go out a ways.
Right,
We go
0.26
up,
miles.
up the end, there's a big turnaround up on top, almost to the Shrewsbury line.
Okay. That goes out that far? I guess I've ridden it.
Yeah. We had a power line there once.
Okay. I guess that's something we need to look into.
Well, and if it is a class 3, get the V-Trans map
To update it.
updated.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you're getting money for it.
That's right. That's right. Because if it is class 3 and it's classified as class 4 and it's ultimately a clerical error, it needs to be fixed.
Plus there was 2 class 4 roads. One actually was part of Quarterline Road that Norm upgraded to make it class 3, that section. And
Because we always stopped out by the end of your road, right? Isn't that about where we originally stopped years ago? If I'm going way back,
For plowing,
for where the class 4 technically
Yeah,
started,
yeah.
it started.
Paul Austin.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to the town line was class. what
Was
it?
class 4 the rest of the way.
But
Yeah.
then once there was, you know,
Upgraded.
3 houses.
It was upgraded.
3 houses
Yeah.
down through there, they upgraded it.
That was back in Norm's day. Yeah.
But they still plowed down through there anyway, even when it was class 4. They always plowed the town line.
Was that when Burke would have been on, or is that?
Bert was on and everything else, because Shelley was down there. I think actually Shelley was the only one down there
Yeah.
at that time. And then, but since then, you know,
Yeah.
Kent has come on, I've come on, you guys have come
Been
on.
there for 33 years.
So, but for some time it was plowed as a class 4 road. And I don't know where in the realm it got changed to the class 3, but I know they were trying to get all the roads up to snuff because once again it became a money issue.
It was a money
you
issue.
guys get paid more money for better roads
That's right.
and everything else
That's right.
and everything, you know. And,
That's Norm. That's just a few years before I came on the board. It was Norm.
and I know even the circle where Art lives down there. I think Mike might have even been on the board then because Bert
I came on the board in 1990.
Yeah, Bert was in the road commissioner bunch, but he had to go down there and prove that there was base in that road
Yeah.
in order for it to be classified from a private road
Yep.
to class 3 road.
The most recent one of those was
That's
Sunny-
when
Sunny
Ralph
Drive.
was still,
That's when my father was still on the board.
that's
yes.
right. He
Yeah.
was the chairperson of the board back then.
Well, a lot of these roads, and that's why I brought it up earlier. A lot of these roads, I don't know what the policy is now because I've fallen out of the realm of it somewhat. But a lot of these roads had to be proven that they had the
Yeah,
base
they
in
still
them,
do. They still do.
and in order to be taken on by a town, and a town could reject them because, you know.
The most recent
Yeah.
one was Sunny Hill over on
Yeah,
East Street,
that's-
and we
no,
had to prove that
Sandbank over there.
we had to prove that it had
Yeah.
the proper base, and that
Yeah.
was under Daryl that
Yeah.
got brought on.
Uh-huh. So, but that's what happens with any of them, you know, and everything. So some of these private ones say, well, if you can prove you got the base in it, then I guess we could take you on for, you know,
That's what,
mileage of road, but.
that's what we did with Sonny Young.
Yeah.
And he had, where the hill was, he had to redo the whole hill. And then where the turnaround is way up in the back, remember they had
Yep.
completely
Yeah,
made a turnaround up
Yeah.
in the woods up there.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I have a motion on the floor that has not had an opportunity for a second.
I will second it, of course.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so,
Thank you. We're done with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Okay.
your time.
we'll see where it goes. All right. Any other public comments? Old business, transfer station, emergency staffing. Katie, have you got any updates from,
So this was a topic, I believe, at the last meeting, and I wasn't here for that, but I know there's some questions about having volunteers or paid staff to help out if we had an on-call list. So Heidi did reach out to VLCT for some clarification. Bottom line would be that for anyone looking to get paid, obviously we would need to be following normal hiring procedures, IRS paperwork, reporting to
They're gonna be in the system.
Department of Labor and such. But of course, one of their biggest concerns is anyone that would be helping out the transfer station be properly trained. And if we do have volunteers, VLCT does have a model volunteer agreement, so they know the scope of the services they're offering.
So to move this up,
Talking unpaid volunteers.
Yes.
Okay.
so I for one would like to see that policy I'd like
The
to, for
sample?
next meeting. Let's see that sample. I think that's the next logical step.
I did email this to you, and the link is right in there.
Oh, there's a link to it in here?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that there was a link, sorry. I did see the email.
I know also at the last meeting there was discussion about having a list put on the website, like a sign-up sheet, or the transfer station. Do you want me to create a list and have people specify whether they like to be volunteers or unpaid or paid?
I personally wouldn't go that route because you get anybody. So what I would like to see is just compile a list of, because I know in-house we had interest.
Yes.
So like even our fire chief was interested possibly he would do a Saturday or whatever. Like I think we just need to maintain a list of some sort. And again, you're right. It needs to designate, are they wanting to get paid? Do they want to be an alternate employee, which is a different scenario, or are they looking at the other? So we need to definitely double check that.
Perhaps I should just create a sign-up sheet, have them put down their name, contact information, and I can contact them individually to see
Yeah,
if
no,
they
that's the
want
way.
to volunteer their time. Or...
That certainly seems reasonable to me. And I mean, we gotta be honest that what we experienced over the course of those 2 weeks is very odd. I mean, it's very out of the ordinary. So we need to just. This is if the sky falls again. So.
Is the link that you provided from the Fair Labor Standard Act, Subpart B, volunteers?
The link for the model agreement or model volunteer agreement.
Did they send you the link for the Fair Labor Standard Act definition of volunteer? Because the definition for public agency for civic, charitable, or humanitarian reasons. And I don't think the transfer station is going to fit one of those definitions.
She provided an
Been under
excerpt from FLSA.
Yep.
And said that under the FLSA, employees may not volunteer services for-profit private sector employers. On the other hand, in the vast majority of circumstances, individuals can volunteer services to public sector employees. When Congress amended this in 1985, it made clear that people are allowed to volunteer their services to public agencies in their community, with but one exception: public sector employees may not allow their employees to volunteer without compensation, additional time to do the same work for which they are employed. There is no prohibition on anyone employed in the private sector from volunteering in any capacity or the line of work in the public sector.
So I don't disagree with any of that. It's that the definition of volunteer is not included in what she sent you. I can send you because I just went through this with some work that I'm doing.
Okay.
And so that's the only reason I even have any idea about this. But you might find this helpful to read through. And again, I can't offer an opinion because I don't know. But when it says that the definition for a public agency for civic, charitable, or humanitarian reasons. That's what's tripping me up.
Well, it would be civic.
It would be a civic.
fall under civic. Yeah.
Transfer station?
Sure, why not?
Okay, maybe.
Because it's municipal run, so it's civic.
Yeah, it's civic.
Well, all I can share with everybody is that there were 2 board members that volunteered on this last
Yes, you did.
issue. I was properly trained.
That's good.
Well, like I say, I mean, like Teresa said, I've got no issues with doing further research and finding out. I mean, if VLCT is pointing us in that direction, it leads me to believe it's covered. I mean, they wouldn't be directing you there if they didn't believe it was legit. So, but obviously it's going to take policy writing and it's going to take work on our side. So,
Yep.
for sure.
Okay, what you read is what you have.
No, it's on the first page. I
It's right
believe.
here. It's on that page.
So Teresa, is your concern that you
Turn to
don't
your next
think
page. It's the
residents
paragraph
can
above the
volunteer
highlight.
for
No,
this?
my concern is I don't think that, and this is where, okay, maybe it fits under civic, but I'd want to know that I don't believe that the transfer station by definition would be considered civic volunteering, charitable volunteering, or humanitarian. That's where I keep getting
So
stuck, that's all.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. I just remember bumping into this before, and that's what I got directed to.
You know, if you do have some information like that,
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to you, Kate.
all right.
And if you find out, if you would let me know too, that would be really helpful to me.
Yeah.
Because I'll learn something new too.
All right, let's move on. New business, VEM buyout discussion, Fredericks Property. That's over on Cold River.
Cold River Road.
So, one simple question, because when my wife told me this was going to be on the agenda, I asked her a few questions.
Yeah.
She said that their recommendation, FEMA's recommendation,
Vermont Emergency Management.
Vermont Emergency Management, but it's ultimately FEMA money coming through them. So, if the concern is we can't find a property owner.
Right.
So it's essentially an abandoned piece of property. Her interpretation of I don't know who was in the meeting, but what you all were told was start the paperwork anyway. And if you get that far, there are people in the agency that will help you through that part of the process. Is that
so
accurate? Understood. I don't know who was there. I'm just looking down the line.
the first meeting was
You weren't
me, Matt, and Mike, I believe.
Okay.
Where they suggested doing this buyout. Mike showed them the property, and he said that would be a good candidate for this type of program.
Okay.
He met with me again last week or the week before and asked if I had done anything further with that. I said, no, let me bring it to the board. The first step is just filling out like an intake form where you put down the property, the value, the location.
So moved.
There's no promise.
So moved.
What do we have that listed at for value?
About zero.
I don't think there's any value on it.
It might be set at 0
Matter
so
of
it
fact-
doesn't collect delinquent.
So the buyout's gonna be 0.
You know where the
I know what he's
barn
talking
was,
about.
that's going, but when,
But the cleanup
after it's
Oh, the
burned,
cleanup, yes.
would be
It's the
included.
cleanup.
after
Okay.
we had that flood,
I know, Mike, I know where it
yeah,
is.
but it even, because when I went over there, it's even more closer to where the wrecked house is.
I've seen it since it burnt, so.
Yeah.
So you
I've
have
been there.
a motion
Oh,
for
good,
me to
good.
fill out the form for this
Yes,
property.
and I think it got seconded by George.
I did.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Did you hear that, Cash?
Yep. Aye.
Aye.
You didn't hear me?
You sleeping over there?
Well, Cash, you're sitting right by my elbow, so I'll translate for you if you want.
Oh, thank you.
Just don't tickle them. All right,
Sat here. I gotta get up and move around.
oh,
You're allowed.
FY25 Budget Workshop schedule.
Wondering if you just want to set the first workshop or set a schedule of the workshops.
Are we gonna go to like what we've done the last couple of years, where we've done them an hour before the meeting?
I think that works for the treasurer. I haven't heard any differently.
Well, either that or Sunday morning.
We could try the 27th at 5 and
Yeah, I was
see
gonna
if that
say,
works.
so we
Yeah,
do
let's
5
do that.
o'clock.
Let's go on from there. And if we have to have an in-between meeting, we could do that too, because we want to get it, but we'll announce it the day of that first meeting at 5 o'clock, then we go on select board. If we didn't accomplish a fair amount of the work, and we think, the total board thinks that it's important for us to have an in-between meeting,
Excuse me.
then we can consider that then. And then put it,
Personally, from the standpoint of the 5 o'clock Monday during a board meeting makes sense, but from then on, if we needed more than that before the regular board meeting, Monday at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you know,
well, that's what we did last year.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Really worked well.
Okay, good.
So the rest of the workshops can be determined after
As
this first
needed.
one.
Yeah. All right. Katie, do you have anything you want to report?
So I don't have an update on a response from Shrewsbury, like what the board has said, but I did follow up with their administrative assistant to make sure she got my email, and they have a meeting on the 15th where they're going to discuss the correspondence with Fitzgerald and Environmental. So I hope to have an update for you for next meeting. I got a packet from E911, basically an annual audit that's due mid-December. So I'm working with Matt to review that, but also put it on the table for you guys to review if you have any pressing issues with the maps. And the Creek Road project is complete now, so I hope to have the grant reimbursement to you as soon as the final invoice is paid.
Good.
Good.
'Cause that has to be submitted by the end of the year.
Gloria, do you have anything hiding back in there? Okay. Art, do you have any concerns? Rob?
Nothing tonight. Just hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Yes. I don't have anything. George, you have anything?
Not a bit, except I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. I figured it would be just the people in the house, but it turns out that there was a whole bunch of people that were planning on coming, so it looks like I'm having 14, 15 showing up.
So you're telling me 2 turkeys?
Yeah, I guess so. I think so.
Cash, you have anything? Are you
I'm
what?
all set, thanks.
Okay.
Motion to enter into executive session.
Second.
You're on your own, folks.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Semper Fi to that young lady.
Who seconded that?
Art.
Good night. You too, you guys. All right, all those in favor of the motion to go into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.